When it comes to insomnia, most people's first reaction is to think of stress or anxiety. But in the documentary, The Gene Doctors, they mention a factor that most people have never even considered: genetics. At this point, some viewers might be asking, wait a minute, is insomnia really something that can be inherited? And also, how exactly can insomnia be deadly? Hello everyone, welcome to Human Observation Society. Before we get back to those questions, Jeff would like to share a story with you about taking control of your own fate. In March 2010, Sonia, who was about to get married, noticed that her 52-year-old mother was speaking more and more softly, her language skills were rapidly deteriorating, and later, she would even fall just trying to stand up. In order to find out the cause of the illness, the family took her everywhere seeking medical help. But not only was it hard to come up with a treatment plan, even getting a diagnosis was extremely difficult. By the end of a year, Sonia's mother could only stay alive with the help of machines, and she soon passed away. The question is, what kind of illness could progress so strangely and so quickly? It wasn't until October 2011 that the autopsy results for Sonia's mother finally provided an answer. Fatal familial insomnia, FFI, is a prion disease caused by a mutation in the PRNP gene on chromosome 20, which is responsible for encoding prion protein. I believe most people are already familiar with the term prion. Anyone who's often human knows, when it comes to cannibalism, you don't eat the brain, because eating the brain can be deadly. That's because this glycoprotein found on cell membranes is especially abundant in brain tissue. Under normal circumstances, the spatial conformation of ovalbumin is mainly a rod-shaped alpha helix, which is involved in nerve signal transmission and maintenance of synaptic function. However, genetic mutations can cause prion proteins to fold into incorrect structures. These pathogenic prion proteins not only misfold themselves, but can even induce other prion proteins to misfold as well. As a result, this malignant force spreads through the patient's brain like a domino effect, which is what's known as hereditary prion infection. As more and more pathogenic prion proteins accumulate in the patient's brain tissue, a series of harmful consequences occur, such as neuronal damage and brain inflammation. This also includes impairment of functions like the thalamus's regulation of the sleep-wake cycle, which ultimately leads to FFI. Gradually, you lose the ability to sleep, develop psychiatric symptoms, and autonomic nervous system dysfunction, and eventually, this leads to death. What's even more frightening is that FFI is not only untreatable, but it can also be passed down to offspring through autosomal dominant inheritance. In other words, Sonia, who inherited her mother's genes, has a 50% chance of developing the disease herself, and she's just one genetic test away from knowing the answer. I wonder, if you in front of the screen had the chance to know the time of your own death, would you want to find out the answer? In any case, Sonia decisively chose to face her fate head-on. The bad news is that her genetic test results showed she inherited the risk for FFI. But the good news is that this disease usually doesn't manifest until people are in their 40s or 50s, so she still has time to prepare. So, on the other side of the ocean, where Neza never shouted, "My fate is mine, not heaven's," there is now a couple like Sonia and her husband. Faced with the verdict of fate, this couple, who had no formal scientific background, made a stunning decision. Sonia quit her job as a lawyer, and Eric gave up his career as an urban planner. Together, they started studying biology from scratch. If no one will save me, then I'll save myself. On one hand, they founded the Prion Alliance to raise funds for prion disease drug research. On the other hand, they enrolled in the Broad Institute, jointly operated by Harvard and MIT, to pursue their doctorates and became the first people at the institute to research prion disease. Fortunately, their perseverance paid off, and they truly did find two promising paths forward. One of them is the CRISPR gene editing technology we've talked about many times before. It's like using molecular scissors to precisely cut out mutated DNA segments, fixing genetic defects at their source. The other is the antisense oligonucleotide, or ASO, technology. It's like designing a piece of molecular tape that sticks to the target RNA, blocking or reducing the production of prion protein, and thereby depleting the raw materials needed for prion propagation. In fact, Sonia and her husband are already collaborating with Ionis Pharmaceuticals, the company that successfully developed nusinersen using ASO technology. Just last year, a special report on the fight against prion diseases published in the journal Science also mentioned their ASO drug trials. At the same time, under their influence, more new methods aimed at fundamentally suppressing pathogenic prion are also developing optimistically. From despair to hope, from outsiders to pioneers, the story of Sonia and Eric proves that science is the sharpest weapon ordinary people have when fighting against fate with nothing but their own flesh and blood. Although there is still controversy in public opinion about gene editing, just like a knife can harm people in the hands of a villain or save lives in the hands of a doctor, perhaps we really shouldn't let our guard down. But there's no need to treat it as a monstrous threat either. So, that's all for this video. If you found it helpful, please be sure to like, comment, and share. See you.